On today's show,
I don't think the importance of early childhood has been really emphasized in the way that it should be so that that position is more respected, and how important it is that they have that
yeah,
because it affects the teachers in the elementary, in the middle, and in the high school,
yeah,
and how they're already prepared and ready so that they're on task, focused, and ready to take on the day.
yeah. And then there's the Head Start teachers who are catching learning disabilities early and helping kids get caught up. Yeah,
Yes, and that is one of the things that does happen in the preschool is that you begin to recognize and catch that in the beginning so that there's help. So by the time they go into the elementary, it's already been assessed and we know, okay, this is where we need to go from here instead of it, being flagged when they're in elementary school.
welcome to Education Today. I'm your host, Solanke. I spent 15 years in the secondary classroom teaching English, reading, and social studies. I've also been on the other side as a parent of 3 children who have completed the formal schooling years of kindergarten through 12th grade and are now in the college and career stage. Now I'm here to have conversations with teachers, administrators, school staff, students, and parents about all things education. Join me as I cover current topics in education from preschool through to college, career, and beyond. So, welcome to today's show. Our topic today is early childhood education. And my guest today is Queenisha Hamilton-Grein. She is a wife, a mom, a pastor, a worship leader, recording artist, and a teacher who has experience teaching Sunday school, preschool, and now elementary school. Did I leave anything out?
No,
Thank you and welcome to the show.
thank you.
All right. So you have experience teaching early childhood education. How long did you teach that level and what specific age group did you teach?
I taught the level for 2 years. However, I did some subbing a year before that as a substitute teacher. I
Mhm.
started out with the 1 to 2 year olds
Yeah.
and then moved into the 3 year olds. When I subbed, I covered the 2 to 3K,
And currently you're teaching in elementary school. Which grade level are you teaching right now?
third grade.
Okay. So you've seen a little bit of a spectrum from very young to early elementary. So in your experience, not just your experience from teaching, but also your experience from having your own children in preschool programs, because you have 4 children.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you believe makes an effective preschool program?
What makes an effective preschool program is one, the structure.
Mm.
When they come in, they have a structure. They have organization, and really on top of that, social. The
Oh, okay.
introduction to how they conduct themselves with a group of people, how they control their emotions, how they control the way they respond to one another, share. It becomes a really big aspect. And with all of my 4 children, all of them did attend preschool in some way, shape, or form. But the 3 out of the 4 attended actual voluntary pre-K. The other one kind of didn't. It was more of a church-based, VPK program, so it wasn't state regulated. And there was a big difference in her preparedness in kindergarten in comparison to the other 3 and their preparedness for kindergarten.
How so?
Well, she, first of all, had a different educational requirement than they did.
Hmm.
Uh, as the time went on, it became a little bit more stringent as far as all of the testing.
Okay.
It became very, very, as soon as you came in, you had an assessment even for her, but it became just a little bit more rigorous, I would say, as
Hmm.
far as the academics
Okay.
compared to what kindergarten was when she was in kindergarten compared to what it is now and what it was as my other 3 girls continued on. My second one, as she went in, it was a little bit, more difficult what the expectations were, a little less outside time, more
Mm.
academics, and it became even more pronounced as my third one went in. even now it's even even more so, more expectations,
Yeah.
which we're experiencing in all of the aspects of education. So it was as if they just knew what was expected when they walked in the classroom,
Hmm.
as they prepared for that. You go in the classroom, you have a routine, how you settled in for the day, you grab anything you have to do for the morning, which would equate to morning work. The other three children had that experience and exposure. She learned it more in kindergarten because where she was before, it did help her as far as her knowing her ABCs, knowing the sounds it makes, knowing her numbers, knowing how to write her name. But some of the structure she learned in kindergarten as for the other three, they already knew structure because they had experienced it in early childhood.
Hmm.
The two for the four started as in the threes program, but my last one started in the twos program, and she was even more prepared.
It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like what you're saying is as kindergarten has gone away from being more playtime and social time and become more academically focused, it's
Yes,
trickled down to preschool for them to prepare them for kindergarten. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Oh,
When I look at when my first one went in, you had to have a kindergarten nap for them to sleep on. The second one had that, but they took less naps. My third and fourth, there was no requirement for a nap because there was no time for a nap.
oh my goodness.
That's how much it changed even in that area. So
Wow.
you actually hit it right on the nose. It's more academically driven and less playtime.
Oh. Who knows? Maybe that's the reason for some of the problems we're seeing in high school with behaviors and inability to interact with peers and teachers. Maybe it's because we're not getting enough playtime in kindergarten now. I don't know. Oh boy,
Yes.
yeah. Anyway, some students do not go to preschool. They stay home with their parents. Perhaps a grandparent watches them as mom and dad go to work for necessity. Although we know that Florida does have a free VPK, voluntary preschool program, but that's only for a few hours a day. So the parent would now have to they'd have to pay like a wraparound fee for the rest of the day. So if they couldn't afford it, for some people, they just, the kid stays home with a parent or a grandmother. So not every kid goes to like full preschool program. But what do you believe are the benefits to students who do experience early childhood education?
I was reading up on this on the National Education Association website. They named a few things that I totally agree with that helps when a child is in early childhood education programs. They're less likely to repeat a grade,
Hmm.
more prepared academically for later grades, more
Yeah.
likely to graduate from high school and higher earners in the workforce. And I
Oh.
have to say, with my children, just looking at my own children, I see how differently they perform in school, and none of them did repeat a grade, and
Hmm.
they were all just more studious and ready to do the work, and not all over the place.
Yeah.
They were more focused, you
Yeah.
know. And teaching third grade now, I especially with COVID being in between there.
Yeah.
In the preschool, I got to see the difference with the kids coming in, and they didn't know even simplistic things like colors and some of their ABCs. And I remember when we taught the 1 to 2 year olds, they all left out of that grade knowing what sounds the letters make, recognizing the letters, knowing their colors, knowing how to count, how to paint,
Hmm.
and I see the difference now, you know, when I'm looking at the different grades in elementary school. Some of the things that I've introduced, or I introduced and other teachers introduced, some of the kids aren't quite ready for the structure of it. Whereas I could do that same activity and have done that same activity in preschool, and they were ready for it because they had been trained to be able to pin it without making a big mess, or
Hmm.
do a science experiment without throwing this here or there, or not following directions. So don't touch anything until we get to this segment,
Yeah.
and saw the difference between the kids who may have had that exposure and who don't have the exposure, even in the simplistic things like what are the days of the week.
Yeah. Are you saying that they perhaps didn't have the exposure because of COVID?
Yes, I saw that even in preschool when the kids came in for the program, because I started. the preschool in the middle of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through that COVID year, and the parents who were, very courageous to go ahead and send their children in because they had to go back to work, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And that next year, when I had the next level of kids that I was teaching at the next grade level or age level, how different they were, how they didn't understand structure and how to come in and follow the directions throughout the day. And it took me a while to get them acclimated,
Yeah.
to how to do this, how to you come, you grab your name and you put it here, like so they know name recognition, what their name looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big difference from the kids who had been there last year or had some type of school exposure last year compared to the kids who, because of COVID, this was their first preschool experience.
Yeah. If the preschool teachers are doing so much in terms of teaching them to write their name, recognize their name, colors, numbers, shapes, there's still a role for the parents. So what would you say is the parents need to be reinforcing at home to work in conjunction with the preschool teachers?
We used to give out, my director and assistant director always gave us material to give out that let the parents know this is where your child should be at this given point. And
Mm-hmm.
we would send out these sheets. Practice this with your child. We focused on fine motor skills, gross motor skills, all of those different things. And we would give them a sheet, for them to follow. I
Yeah.
would say most preschools, that are very structured and organized in that way have those things that they send out to the parents that they can do at home with their children to reinforce what's being taught in the school, and, to just further their growth,
Yeah.
even from a social aspect.
Yeah.
Would say that the parents actually taking the time to do those things to reinforce it and it not just be okay. You just learn that in school when you come home. We do something. We just don't even touch on it at all. And I understand in some families why that's the case because of the busyness, the
Yeah.
busy schedule, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you have children of different ages and they have different curricular activities they're involved in. So it's really hard sometimes, but in just taking 1 or 2 nights to just 20 minutes to do some of those activities that are suggested would make a big difference in how they perform when they're in the preschool class, especially because there are some students who come 2 days a week or 3 days a week as opposed to five. There
Yeah.
was a big difference I would see in the growth in the ones who came every day or at least 3 days in comparison to the ones who only were exposed to it 2 days.
Yeah. That makes sense. For my final question, I wanted to ask you about this. I always think about this, that every May we have teacher appreciation. Um, there's lots of businesses offer perks for teachers, or gifts, restaurants, like stores. There are so many, and even just in general, throughout the school year, there are certain discounts for teachers that are given. But usually those discounts or gifts or perks stipulate K through 12 teachers, and often sometimes they exclude pre-K teachers. So
Hmm.
and you've taught both. You've taught pre-K, and then now you're teaching elementary school, and so um, whether or not one is easier than the other, or whether they're both difficult. Why do you think it is that preschool teachers are often underpaid in comparison to their K-12 colleagues, or unappreciated or left out when it comes to teacher appreciation?
I don't think the importance of early childhood has been really emphasized as in the way that it should be, so that that position is more respected, and how how important it is that they have that
Yeah.
because it affects the teachers in the elementary, in the middle, and in the high school,
Yeah.
and how they're already prepared and ready so that they're on task, focused, and ready to take on the day.
Yeah.
I think that it's just a matter of because they have shorter days. Whereas in my case, it was in preschool and daycare. So I
Yeah.
had them all day, you know.
Yeah.
But in most cases they are only there maybe 3 to 4 hours. So I don't know And the requirement is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's different in the the curriculum and the expectation of curriculum.
Yeah.
But the drain you feel physically,
Mm-hmm.
because these kids are smaller, you're picking them up, they're
Yeah.
falling, they're doing this, they're doing that, and you're dealing with a lot of their emotions,
Mm-hmm.
more so than you would in the older
Yeah.
grades. So I think it balances itself out. Okay, I'm less drained in the area of my expectations from what I have to do with curriculum, but I'm more drained physically, and even mentally, because I have to deal with all of their, the way they're socializing. Some kids are there that don't speak English, and when you don't speak English, you're a little older. At least you have some experience. But when you're like 2 and 3 and 4, it's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 months to get a kid to stop crying for their moms and dads. It's really draining on
Yeah.
preschool teachers. And I think those things aren't really taken into consideration. But a BPK teacher, I was looking at the different requirements for certification.
Mm-hmm.
Most places, kindergarten up, you can maybe teach um, while obtaining your certification.
Yeah.
BPK is different. You actually have to get all of that in place before you step in that classroom to lead.
Oh, wow. So it's more stringent. It's not easy.
It is more stringent. It
Oh,
is
wow.
more stringent. I looked at uh, maybe doing kindergarten through 8th grade and then added BPK to the certification, and there was way more requirements.
Oh, wow.
Once I took off the BPK and just put kindergarten through 8th grade, at least 10 courses went away.
Oh, wow.
It is very what the things that it's required for VPK. It is very much state regulated,
Yeah.
which is a good thing because they are very particular about what the kids are getting from an academic standpoint,
Yeah.
socially, everything,
Yeah.
and fine motor skills, gross motor skills, all of those different things. It is. I don't think people realize, particularly for VPK teachers, just how much they have to know and do, and make sure that all of these sheets are filled out because it's the VPK program. It has to be signed every month. All of those, I guess, tuition, grants, if you will, if you want to call it that, but
Yeah.
it is really the VPK funding.
Yeah.
So that has to be filled out each month and signed by each parent in your classroom. Yeah, so it is more requirements for a BPK teacher than the average person would think. In order to get that, you have to do a very rigorous, if you didn't already have the education,
Mm-hmm.
a very rigorous program in order to build a portfolio, everything. You have to do it's a lot more for
Yeah.
the VPK program than people realize.
I had no idea. And then there's the Head Start teachers who are catching learning disabilities early and helping kids get caught up with learning disabilities. So, yeah.
Yes, and that is one of the things that does happen in the preschool is that you begin to recognize and catch that in the beginning so that there's help. So by the time you go into the elementary, it's already been assessed, and we know, okay, this is where we need to go from here, instead of it, being flagged when they're in elementary school. It can be, I guess, worked on and focused on a little bit earlier
Yeah.
for the student's sake, so that they know how to acclimate to their environment, and how to actually be serviced better
Yeah.
from the teacher standpoint. You
Yeah.
go in knowing, okay, this is something the child deals with, and you almost had 2 or 3 years experience under your belt to pass on to this elementary school teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. To be honest, the work that is being done in preschool and Head Start by these teachers is so important, because there is nothing worse than a kid coming to us in high school and we as teachers recognizing that this kid has a learning disability and it has gone unrecognized this whole time.
Wow.
At that point, it's just nightmare. It's really tough at that point for the kid. But thank you so much for talking to us today. I tip my hat to preschool teachers and even kindergarten teachers. I don't know how they do it. I will stick to high school any day. I just don't know how they do it. I think that preschool and kindergarten teachers are magicians, how they get kids from being like a fumbling mess to being able to walk in line and be structured and organized. I don't know how they do it, and to be able to write their names, and I don't know how they do it. I just tip my hat to them every day. So thank you for your service as a preschool teacher, and thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Education Today. We'll be back next time with more current topics on all things education. In the meantime, you can email any questions or comments you have about the show to edtodaypodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please hit the subscribe button on whichever platform you are listening so we can continue to expand our reach. If you'd like to hear more from me, you can check out my blog for more about my experiences as a classroom teacher at medium.com/@SOKOR. That's medium.com/@SOHKOR. You can also find me on Instagram at @SOKOR_rights. That's SOHKOR_rights.